Most organizations talk about values, very few of them operationalize them. Today's guest leads an organization where kindness isn't just a slogan, it's a decision making framework, a hiring filter, and a performance standard. But here is the real question: can you lead with kindness and hold accountability in environment shaped by trauma, burnout, and systemic inequality? Kathryn Lawrence is the CEO of Orana House, a leader navigating complex realities, supporting women and children escaping domestic violence while building a workforce culture grounded in consistency, care, and courage. Catherine, welcome to Human Edge podcast. I want to explore what really it takes to read like that with you today. How
Thank
are you?
you. I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. You have embedded kindness as a core philosophy, but what does kindness actually looks like in a hard operational decision?
I know it sounds a bit sort of nefarious and probably not really something that you can make, I don't know, operational decisions around. But I guess it's just an overarching sort of value that we have. And I think it's probably comes from the fact that it's easier for us working in this environment where all of our staff are dealing with complex trauma every single day and are exposed to it. So we've always had from day one, and we've been going for nearly 40 years now. So from day one, had to ensure that our staff are safe psychologically, and so we've had that advantage, if that makes sense, where
Mm,
other organisations, I guess now things are embedded in legislation where you have to care for your staff. We've been doing it long before that was a requirement. So it's
yeah,
been, I actually, so interestingly, I started working, Orana started in 1988. We
right.
became incorporated. I started working at Orana in 1988 as a refuge worker when I was at uni. I had like a perm, and yeah, I was kind of very 80s looking. And in those days, women's refuges and anything to do with FDV were consistently had that sort of feminist background, because that's how they were started, women sort of protecting women. And I
Mm,
wasn't your usual kind of refuge worker. But I just had a passion for the work, and I always have had. So I worked in the 80s here. I left to go to the community legal sector, and I came back to Orana in about 1999 for a couple of years
mm,
as a refuge worker when I went back to study and my kiddies were little.
mm.
Um, and yeah, and here I am, sort of, I've been here for 3 years now, and I guess nothing's changed much in the world of FDV, unfortunately,
Yes.
except there's more of a, I guess, more of an understanding and more of a publicity around it, which makes it kind of easier for us.
Mm,
Um, but apart from that, literally the same stuff's happening that has been happening for a very long time. And in some sort of, if you want to have a look at it in reality, it's getting worse, and we're dealing with much more complex sort of cases, and we need to make sure our staff are protected because it's a
So what?
lot.
Yeah, yeah, it is quite a lot.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's start with the statistics. What are the statistics here at home?
As far as how many
Uh,
women or
yeah, how many women get
um
involved in gender-based violence?
yeah, so I guess probably you probably know that I just look at the Australian statistics and they don't really reflect what's going on. So I
Mm,
think there's been 26 women killed this year. The last
mm,
time I looked, multiple kiddies, I think 3 children in the last 7 days.
mm,
Um, and I guess the difficult thing for us working in this environment is
mm,
that family and domestic violence is a very gendered thing,
mm, mm,
and yet a lot of the people that are doing the work are females. So as soon as you say it's gendered,
mm,
everybody jumps on you and says, "What about my friend, his wife?" You know,
Yeah.
hit him once, and I don't really think they understand the depth of FDV proper kind of embedded behaviours that create an environment where women aren't safe, children aren't safe, and and that can go for generations.
Mm.
And
Mm.
we're working now with very complex. In the 80s,
Mm.
the kind of client base that I remember from the refuge was just not just women that were escaping violence and needed safety for a start. And
Yeah.
then once that safety was in place, then we could find them a property to live in. You could get a public house, and then we would provide support. The environment we have now is one where most of the women that we're seeing have complex mental health issues to do with
Mm.
FD. A lot of them have, not all of them, but a lot of them have, alcohol and other drugs used as a coping mechanism for trauma. Um, we have a high percentage in some of our programs of women from culturally diverse backgrounds who have zero family and support in Australia,
Mm.
and they then have that kind of cultural embarrassment around about what's happening to them.
Mm.
Um, and we're also dealing with the worst housing crisis Western Australia's ever known. So
Mm.
our homelessness statistics have just gone through the roof. We've got people living on the streets, and we've got women living in cars with children because it's safer than being in the family home. It's pretty
How
horrific.
Oh,
I know.
how yeah, how sad. What what do you think has made it really complex now? Of course, there's media, there's social media. Is it that we
Yeah.
know more about it now, or is it because the complexity of what's happening has changed? And if it has, what has?
I think it's the complexity, Anastasia. I think the basic. I mean, it's too much of a complicated question for me
Mm.
to answer because there's
Mm.
lots of people that. But I think, from my point of view, what I'm seeing is the world's become much more complex. There's People have access to things they never used to have access before.
Mm.
Firstly, drugs, the
Mm.
change in drug use. So, meth, which is a common drug that people are using at the moment in Western Australia, and in particular our client base, and
Mm.
their ex-partners. And the behaviours displayed by people using meth are very different to what marijuana or heroin causes,
Mm.
if that makes sense. So they make you very aggressive, very impulsive, and I would say that probably without, anecdotally, probably about 80% of the people that we see in refuge have had
Yeah.
some experience, either their partner or themselves, using meth.
Mm.
So I think that in its start, and then we have complex mental health issues caused by generational violence,
Mm.
um, generational poverty, or we're seeing women that come to Australia with a loving partner, and then
Mm.
that loving partner is suddenly no longer, and they're completely isolated. And that's a different thing for us to deal with as well, because there's no support, and they don't get any government support pretty much. We have to kind of start from scratch there. Um, Children have behavioural issues because of it.
Mm.
It's just a really, it's just a big melting pot of stuff that
Yeah.
staff have to deal with. And I mean, that doesn't even kind of bring in the sadness that you
Yeah.
feel,
Mm.
when you see
Mm.
these things. And we have to do some things which go against what we believe, but we have to, our number one priority is protecting children.
Yeah.
And there's been situations where we've had to have children removed or contact the authorities to see what they think, because the children aren't safe. And yeah, it's a pretty hard environment to work in. And then you get all the negativity, particularly around on social media, around the gendered violence thing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that it's very hard as females. So we have a completely female staff base.
Mm.
We
Mm.
have an exclusion under equal opportunity. So it's very hard as a female to try and fight, I
Mm,
guess, for want of a better word,
mm,
to make people kind of understand it. I think if we had a whole heap of men out there, and I know that there are men out there, and I'm not, please don't think that I'm negating the work that's being done by the men's group. And, over here we've got a group called Man Up and, White Ribbon, and all of those male based organisations are doing what they can do. But the
mm.
moment a woman stands up and says this is gender based, then they're attacked really on social
Yeah,
media. We
yeah,
just keep our head down here. We have social media, but we keep our head down because we don't really
right.
want to. Yeah, if you put your head above, yeah,
Mm,
you're up for it. So yeah,
right. Yeah. Wow. It is just a complex issue that
yeah,
we're just starting to talk about it, and we really don't talk much enough about it. But you've seen this for some time.
mm,
For women that end up in this situation, is it a sudden thing? Is it something that has been ongoing for a long time? Is there a
hmm.
pattern? Is there not? What's going on?
I think all of those things. Yes.
Mm,
So to say that there's I guess the only thing that is consistent is that coercive control.
right.
So every single person that we see that is a victim or a survivor
Mm,
of family and domestic violence has
mm,
that coercive control underneath where they've lost their self-esteem. They've lost control of kind of their life in general, and they're feeling pretty bad about themselves and believing that maybe for some reason they're the cause of this. Um,
mm,
that's about the only thing I think that we see that's in common. So
mm,
sometimes we get women straight from the hospitals where they've been harmed and injured, and it may be the only time it's happened. But I can guarantee you that in the background there would have been some of that coercive kind of behaviour to start with.
mm,
But that if you don't know what to look for, or you don't understand how controlling behavior works, you don't see that that's coming. And then they're kind of surprised when they're harmed physically. And
mm,
sometimes women need that to have a reason to leave a relationship, which is terrible. So they feel like unless they're harmed, then nothing, then they're just complaining there's nothing wrong with their relationship, when in fact that's not true. And it's very dangerous for women to leave family and domestic violence relationships, as you know.
yeah.
It's the most dangerous time.
Mm,
And we have women that come and go into the relationship. So they'll come to us for a while, but then they'll go back into the relationship. And we don't judge at any way,
yeah.
shape, or form. But we're just always there when they come back. So we
Oh,
don't allow.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh.
we don't kind of make our we have outreach, we have a whole heap of other services apart from our crisis refuge, and that's
Mm,
not time limited. And people can come back as many times as they need to, because sometimes it takes women a long time to leave a relationship, and
mm,
they'll leave the relationship and then he'll be all, I've changed, I'm going to get help, I need you.
mm,
They'll go and then nothing changes, or
mm, mm.
it makes her feel so bad that she goes back because she doesn't believe she's able to do it on her own, which is very sad.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
really, really sad. That's really sad. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard, at least he's not hitting you. I'm like,
correct.
huh?
I know.
Oh my goodness. So the standard has become when you get hit, you are
Mm,
out. And it's really, really sad to hear. But amazing to hear there are some angels like you that are out there. What does it take to work in this environment? Because it has to be emotionally burdening.
yeah, and I guess that because we're aware of that,
Mm,
we are really good at ensuring that there's things in place for staff to kind of alleviate those issues as much as we can. I mean, every job, many jobs hold inherent kind of, psychological risk to them. Policing, ambulance, doctors, they all you go to work every day knowing that something that you see or something that happens to you is not going to be lovely. Um, and it's just a matter of how do you kind of manage that workplace to make sure that we don't harm people in the workplace. And to do that, I guess we just have to have a whole heap of things in place that make sure people feel comfortable to say I'm not okay. So,
Mm.
and we have those, and we have made it so that saying I'm not okay is 100% fine. You know,
Mm.
if
Mm.
you say you're okay, people will look at you and go, no, you're not. I can tell you're not. You get hounded for saying you're not okay. As opposed to the other, there's no stigma
Yeah.
attached.
Yeah.
And so staff can have that safety in knowing that
Mm.
if one of my staff members came up or one of the refuge workers or came up and said, I need a week off because, of what happened, something happened last week, I need a week off, it would be, yeah, no worries. There's no requirement to explain yourself, that the
Mm.
mental health side of things is a priority.
Mm.
And we have we don't have like a performance review program for 12 months. We have individual supervision every single month minimum,
Yeah.
where everybody gets a chance. And I mean, everyone gets a chance to sit down with their supervisor and to talk about how they're doing. And the things that happen in that meeting are more around, are there any things in particular that happened that you want to talk about? And then there's opportunities. We talk about self-care, what they're doing outside of the workplace,
Yeah.
if they need anything within the workplace.
Mm.
We talk about what they're doing really, really well.
Mm.
We talk about, do you need any training? Just that's a monthly minimum that we do that, and it's formal and it's documented, and then people get the paperwork to take away so that they can have a look at it and go, okay, this is a reflection on how I'm doing.
Yeah.
And if at any time between those meetings, if people aren't doing okay, they can always have an informal chat, and kind of there's nothing in the workplace that makes anybody uncomfortable to say that they're not okay. So,
Yeah, that's really good to hear. That's good to hear the support that is there because it's an environment that obviously need that support. Um,
mm,
so as a CEO, you carry everyone on your shoulders.
you sound like my
hear
operations
you hear the
manager.
stories of the women that are coming in. You hear the
Yeah,
stories of the women that have left. You hear the stories of your staff. How do you look
yeah.
after you?
That's a really good question. Because actually, my operations manager, so we have a sense of where staff do supervision with their staff, but then we have
Mm.
external supervision for those people that have got like two or three people and might get a bit bombarded. Um, I don't actually have that, which is kind of weird. But I think if I felt like I needed it, I would do that. I think for me, that I'm able to say mentally, probably there's not a lot of things that happen at work that have that impact on me that I need to kind of debrief with someone. But if there was, then I would do that. I have lots of external supervision opportunities. There's people that can come and speak to me, or people that can come and speak to our staff, and we do that if we have like a critical incident or something. But
Mm.
for me, just ensuring that we're kind of got the best sort of safety net across the whole group of people that work here is sort of therapeutic for me, because
Mm.
it's a very I'm able to be the sort of manager, the sort of leader that fits my personality, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And I think that in itself is very beneficial. I've had to work in areas before where my natural personal feelings about how things should be done are very conflicted with the policies and procedures and how structured and those workplaces were. And to be able to be here, and I've had it in a previous workplace as well, where I'm able to go, you know what, we've got the opportunity to have a model that works really well, that is based on everybody being individual, everybody having their own needs, whether you be, someone that wants to work part time, someone that wants to work full time, someone that wants to work shift work. We have that capacity to be able to go, yeah, we can do that, and that fits in with them. Because I would love every single person to go to work and be who they are, as opposed to kind of putting on a suit and feeling like they have to be stronger than they actually are, or have to change how they do things or how they speak to people simply because they're in a work environment that requires them to kind of fit into a box. And
Yeah.
so what we do here is that we try and make it so that everybody's skills are different, and we try and use those and utilize them as best as we can. So yeah.
Right. So that care, that caring nature, um, that driving it through
Mm,
humanity and looking people for who they are, seeing them, and knowing that them knowing you value them, you see them, you
mm.
hear them, really important. Um, where did you learn that, and why actually does this work really interest you?
I guess I didn't really learn it in the workplace. I've done some formal, I guess, leadership,
Mm,
but I started working. Probably my first management role was around about 1999, and I
mm,
worked in a government agency that had a whole heap of young people working for them, and they were all law students. And the client base that we were dealing with were very disadvantaged, very vulnerable people, people in prisons, all sorts of stuff. But we had this whole group of staff that all kind of looked the same and would become very stressed and very uncomfortable if someone swore at them. And yet they were dealing with people that had been in prison for sort of 20 years. And to me, it just didn't make sense that we would have a workforce that was completely alien to the clients that we were dealing with. Um, and I guess in a corporate setting, it's not too bad because your clients might reflect, your staff. But when you're working in the community, you need to have staff for a safe workplace. You need to be able to have staff that can kind of understand their client base a bit. And also, clients need to see people that are a little bit different. They don't want to see sort of like a 21-year-old, top achiever. I mean, there's places for those people and they're amazing, but
mm,
I think you have to have a bit of a mix. So that's where I started, kind of just employing people, changing the tactics of employment and looking in different places for staff. Whereas they went to two of the top universities and they took just their top students kind of thing that were studying at the moment. I felt that there's probably better places like TAFE, which is the tertiary sort of students,
mm,
people that had worked in customer service. You can learn things, but you can't learn that inherent way to deal with people, and you can't bring sort of like years of experience of life in. You can't make people have those things. It's easy to learn, but it's
mm.
not easy to have those life experiences that I think are really important when you work in the community sector,
Yeah.
because our clients need to be able to relate to us to build that kind of bond of safety. And I think having a really diverse staff base is really valuable for everyone, because
Mm,
people learn things from other people and grow their minds and are much more accepting of people who are different if it becomes a daily thing for them. And So that's sort of like my first start of it. But I've got three children. I've got two millennials and a Gen Z. And even just looking at them, they're different, the way they
Mm,
do things. And
mm,
they have these incredible skills. And the world's just opened up with, technology. And
mm,
younger people that are coming in have incredible skills, which I just didn't have. I mean, I had to go down to the library to read a book to learn something. They know stuff that's incredible and have so many skills. And I think to value those also, and not focus so much on how people look, and to
mm.
keep on top of kind of just understanding, I guess, what's important to people as they come through, and what people have got to offer to the workforce doesn't necessarily be on what's on a piece of paper that they bring into an interview. So
Yeah.
I yeah.
So you've said value. That you're an organization that are value driven. What does value mean to you? Because values, we see them in organization on the boards, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
sometimes they don't translate into what is in practice. What does that
yeah.
mean? And when you talk about that, what is totally non-negotiable for you, the workforce and the people that you look after?
I guess the not negotiables are behaviours that make people feel unsafe, and behaviours that make so from a staff base,
Mm,
behaviours that make people feel unsafe, outside of like your policies and procedures, and this is how the formal bullying and harassment, etc. Those kind of psychosocial things that are put in place, those structures, are fine. But over here, you've got behaviours that don't kind of fit in here. We
mm,
need to have behaviours as part of our process. So we talk about behaviours a lot. And when we employ staff, we talk about behaviours and respect, and allowing people to be who they are, and to have a voice and to speak up. And that's the same with our clients. So if people need to be able to have that safety, I guess, to feel like it doesn't matter what they say, as long as it's respectful, obviously, that someone will listen to them and to their point of view. And that's exactly what we do, I guess, in the workplace, is make sure that kind of it's understood that everybody has a voice, and your voice might not be kind of saying the same thing as what I think, but we have to listen to that. And sometimes, people know things that we don't know. People know things that I don't know, and um, that's, I guess, one of the values that we have to have, which is the behaviours. So
mm.
even
I
from
love
interviewing, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. I love that you talked about behaviors, but you said something very important there, that for you guys, not only for staff, but you also do expect that the cohort you look after to feel like they have a voice. Now, for a
Hmm.
woman who's been battered and who's been really, they come to you at their lowest, how do
Hmm.
you then support them to get their voice back?
I guess we're client led, so we don't ever force people or make people do things that they don't want to do. So we're very, very client led. So we always ask them what they want and what they need from us. And I guess I can go through sort of like at Refuge, when people first come in, as you say, coming into a refuge is not a nice place. They're
Mm,
lovely and we're
mm,
lovely, but
mm,
you feel kind of, I guess, that you've got no other option. Sorry.
yeah.
Um, but we let the client lead us and talk to us about what recovery looks like to them. What do they hope to achieve? Some want to go back to where their family is. Some people just want a home with their children that's safe. And we just, yeah, I guess that's what we do. We don't ever force people, which is why we don't ever question if people go back to a relationship. We
Mm,
can give them sort of support, but we would certainly never tell somebody what they had to do, because to leave a relationship that's violent, it needs to be your choice. And um, it's not up to us to judge, and not up to us to make decisions for other people. So
Mm.
literally, in answer to your question about how do they find their voice, it's because we listen to them and we literally do what they want. So they feel a bit empowered. Um, we provide all the supports there for them to be able to be their best, and then just go from there. And everyone, that looks different to everyone. So, yeah.
Right. So in these 3 years, what has been one story that has stuck to you that you're like, this is why I come to work every day because it's been such a success. You're like, that's why I come to.
And I guess it's not so much a story about a client; it's more about the workforce. So I'm
Mm,
very big on um, and I guess people would be quite surprised. People that would know me in my personal life, I think, would be quite surprised at the amount of feminism I have inside of me and my fight for women. It's one of my things I've always done. So, like, literally since I left school, it's where I've worked. But I'm not hugely vocal at it. I just get on and do things. And when I started here, um, the staff were on a enterprise agreement. So 100% female staff, right? And you talk about the gender pay gap. And it's not because, a female engineer and a male engineer get different pay rates. No, it's about a whole group of sort of professions where women are, basically. And one of them is refuge workers and crisis work and, as you know, childcare and all of those different things. They're predominantly female based in professions. The staff were working shifts 24/7. They weren't getting weekend penalties. They were getting something like, I think it was $5.80 an hour at night time to sleep there at the refuge. So it was called an inactive shift. $5. I think it was about $6.18 by the time we kind of changed everything over. Um, and they literally just weren't getting what they needed to get. But because of the nature of the people that work in FDV, so people that work in FDV tend to be very kind people, and they don't make a fuss. They just get on with it. And for them, they're not there for the money, they're there for other reasons. So their why is a different reason. But I think that everybody should be there for the money as well, because your time is so precious. I mean,
mm,
these are women that are giving up time with their families on the
mm,
weekend, you know,
mm.
or at night time or during the day to come and help other people's families, and yet we're not paying them penalty rates on the weekend. How is that? So
Mm,
um, I spent probably 12 months just going through the process, getting rid of the enterprise agreement and getting them onto an award where they get weekend penalties, they get decent night shift penalties, they get lots of overtime stuff. And that, to me, I think, is probably the thing that makes me feel the happiest about being at work, is knowing that I can introduce all these things that I know are going to make their lives better, you know?
yeah.
And it's like you go and do the good work that you do, the great work that you do, but don't think you shouldn't be paid for it, because this is valuable work that you're doing. You're saving lives here,
Mm,
and you need to be paid properly. So, and we also had a kind of a unwritten rule that nobody worked full time because it was too stressful to work full time. And what I picked up over the last few years is that there's actually people that are working part time but want to work full time because they're trying to save up for a house. They
mm,
might be single mums and have children. And so then they have to go and get another job on the weekend just because. And it's like, no, 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 no. We need to put a stop to this. And if you want to work full time, if it fits in the budget, we make sure we do the supervision. You need to tell us if you're not, if it's too much.
yeah.
Then we're all adults here. If you believe that you can do it, then let's do that. Because I think sometimes the impact of not having enough money is quite significant.
mm,
And coming to work is actually better for their mental health than trying to find the money to pay the rent kind of thing. So um, just little tweaks that if you just look around and I just think, okay, I can change this and it's easy because I've got
mm,
that ability to do that, which is,
yeah,
I guess, one of the greatest gifts I've got is that I can make changes that I think are, I mean, they're above what I mean, so for example, the government defines what you get compassionate leave for bereavement leave. And it's
mm,
like somebody that lives in your house, your spouse, if these people pass away. And literally that's it. People that live in your house and your immediate family. But that doesn't reflect the world anymore. I mean, the world has very complicated relationships.
mm,
You know, for a start, I mean, our Aboriginal staff, their relationships, their family relationships don't look anything like that. And if we say, well, no, you can't have compassionate leave because, that person, well, we give it for pets,
mm,
It's like,
yeah,
what does it matter what your relationship is if you loved that person or that pet enough that you feel grief over them passing, then you should be able to use that leave. And if not, we'll just make up some leave called special leave. So we have
mm,
special leave, which is not defined by sort of legislation. It just is what it is. So,
mm, yeah. Oh, oh,
so
that's
we just
amazing.
kind of, yeah, I think we just look at things from a much broader. We the world seems to have to be wanting to be something, but nobody wants to put those things in place to make it like that.
Mm,
And it, I just don't understand when you can make such simple changes and make the workplace so much safer for your staff. In particular, working in the environment that we work in, we've got longevity of staff,
mm.
um, and we just, yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's so easy to be people
It's
driven.
interesting you say that because I work with a lot of executives, CEOs, founders,
Hmm.
in coaching and also in just supporting cultures in
Hmm.
organization. And where I look at it and I see, but that can be made possible. It's
Hmm.
always about the P&L. It's always
Hmm.
about the money. It's about how much
Hmm.
it's going to cost. And it's not about the person behind this.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's very very interesting. I've met very very few people who think like you. Most people just
Oh my
think.
gosh. So probably the whole place is going to fall apart then under my leadership. But I can promise you that everything I do is costed. It's costed.
There you go. Because I just
Uh,
think some of these things, they really. What does it matter if somebody finishes work 15 minutes ahead of time if they've
oh,
done their
exactly.
job? You know.
Exactly. So it's not about the amount of time, it's what you're doing. But you have to
Mm,
preach that to people and you have to have people that are under you that have the same mindset. And that's also difficult because I'm not dealing with people above me. My board is incredible and supportive and understand the environment we work in. But sometimes you might have an employee who might have come from somewhere different, and then I have to kind of just mold them a little bit more. And oh, work from home today, it's so lovely, and they're like, oh no, I don't do that. We don't do that, and it's like eventually they do, and it's they lose that feeling of constantly being driven. That if it is okay, if you finished your work at 2 o'clock, go home. I don't care. If you feel like you get up in the morning, if you don't have any appointments and you don't want to get dressed, work from home. If it makes you a happier person, then surely that makes you a better employee because I mean, I don't care if people do their washing or cook their dinner while they're working from home because I have trust that the people that work here know what they have to do. And if they don't get it done, well, it's their responsibility and they're very responsible. So I have no problem with that.
yeah,
No problem whatsoever.
it takes a different leader. It takes somebody who has nothing to prove and who is very confident in their leadership, in their work,
Mm.
to lead like that and to allow people to be. Most
Mm,
importantly, to trust people, because all I
mm.
hear sometimes like you can't trust them, and I'm like, it's the culture and the environment that you've
Yeah,
created. Because when you create
correct.
an environment where people know they're trusted, for sure they work really hard to make sure that they remain accountable and that they don't breach that, because they know if they breach that, then they've lost something that is precious. And so
Absolutely.
yeah, people fail to do the work, which is creating the culture that tells
Mm-hmm.
us this is our boundaries, this is how we work here, this is what is
Mm-hmm.
expected of me, and they want to rule by, if you don't do this, then this will
Yeah,
happen. If you don't do
yeah.
this, then this, or control. And for the most part, and I say this to leadership all the time, this is a reflection of what's going on inside of you. They
I
don't want to
agree.
hear that. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. And I think that probably from an ego point of view, it's never been about, I guess it's more about the fact that I have children and I've
Mm,
always worked and managed the children. And, you know, one of them has quite complex needs and then all three of them are completely different. And yet they have so many different skills and so many different values. And I think that what does it hurt to mold your workplace so that it suits pretty much all of those people? I mean, some people would hate our workplace, you know, people that, and that's fine, but it works for the type of people that work for us. Um, but I need to also point out that although this all sounds sort of like, you know, hippie 1970s kind of stuff, if I'm not kind of scared of having that hard talk with people and I think in my whole, how long have I been doing a CEO role? Probably the last 18 years, I've only had to terminate two people. But if they don't fit the culture, if they're creating a culture where, or they've got behaviors that, even though you've spoken to them and given them multiple opportunities, sometimes behaviors are the hardest thing to change in people.
mm,
And the reality is, why should they have to change? So if they're the kind of person that likes to talk about other people behind their back and be sort of divisive. I mean, they can go and work for, I don't know, a law firm somewhere, but not for us because it's not our workplace. And certainly, if we need to get rid of people, we will do that because
yeah.
that's almost as important as employing the right people, is ensuring that you don't allow someone toxic to stay in your workplace, because it only takes one person really that can destroy a great culture. So
Yeah,
that
I'm glad
is
you
just as
said that.
important. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I say an apple will rot the lot. Some people are scared of having those difficult conversations. Some people are like, oh,
yeah,
they've been here for so long. There's always excuses as to why. But also,
yeah,
you touched on the most important thing, that you employ the right person, because I
yeah,
think it starts
yeah,
there. Because if
yeah,
you don't bring the person who aligns with the value, and you're just
yeah,
wanting to put somebody on the seat, this is where we get it wrong. This is where
yeah,
it all
yeah.
gets all mixed up. Yeah.
And we've been through interview processes. At the end of it, we haven't employed anyone
Mm,
because they just didn't feel right. And we get a lot of applications for positions. And in all of the positions I've had, we always seem to get a lot of really good applications. Um,
mm,
and it's really difficult to know if the person on the piece of paper is the person sitting in front of you. And so I mean, obviously you're aware of like Chat GPT and the ability to write an amazing kind of
mm,
application.
mm,
That doesn't really kind of impress us. We would rather look at, I think, some of the values that I look for and always have done are people that seem to have kind of not been handed everything. People that have come from maybe leaving school early, going to sort of, you know, to TAFE, doing a little course there, doing another course, and then maybe getting a diploma and then having worked part time and done it. Those sorts of kind of people that are happy to do whatever they need to do to kind of get where they want to go are very valuable. And they're the ones that to me on a piece of paper, even if the application is full of spelling mistakes, I don't care. I will interview those people, and I will have a look at them and see what they're like, because it's very easy to get your head turned by a beautiful application, but my head's not turned. And in fact, another thing that I always do and always have done is every single person that puts an application in will get a response. So
Correct.
even if we get 250 applications and some of
Mm,
them are terrible, I will
mm,
always email everyone and say if they were successful or not, if um, if they want some feedback, but nobody should put in a job application where they've spent lots of their time doing, and then it just goes off into wherever. It's like,
yeah.
how rude. And I would hate that for the people that I love, to have that happen to them. So I figure that I can spend a day just responding to everyone and letting them know where we're at. And we also always put the salary range in, because who applies for a job and they don't know how much it pays? And then we get, people that come to interview and we know they're not financially driven, but surely you want to know how much you're going to get paid before you make a decision about whether you're going to put in an application for a job, because they do take a long time to do. So being respectful even at that early stage, which is everyone gets a response, everyone knows exactly how much they're going to earn if they work for us. And then if they don't get an interview, getting an email from me or whoever's running the process and saying why. And just letting them know that, because you never know when it might be someone's last chance of, they might have put in 50 applications and then nobody ever gets back to them. And it could be the last one that they put in. And if nobody gets back to them, they might just give up, or, decide that it's all too hard. And that makes me very sad to think that you have that power, which is what I have, to be able to make someone feel bad. And I don't want to do that. So
Oh,
if I've got the
Catherine,
power to make people feel bad, then obviously
yeah.
I've got the power to make them feel good. So why would I choose bad over
Yeah.
good? I don't know.
I love that. I once applied for a job, went for the interview, went for the second interview, went for the third interview, and I never heard from them. And that
No,
have stayed with me. And I am glad I never did, because it's an organization then I would not have wanted to work with
no.
if that's the way
Shows
they
you,
treat
yeah,
people. You know,
yeah,
and obviously when you're interviewing for a role that you're going for, the first, second, third interview, it's a senior role in the organization,
yeah,
so
yeah,
why
yeah.
would you not respond?
Correct. Why would you
You
not?
know, and
It's so
if you're not
disrespectful.
responding at that level, what happens to the people that apply to come and make tea, or what
Yeah,
happens?
yeah,
You know,
exactly,
it's
exactly.
really, 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 it makes it made me very happy, because I was like, okay, that's not the organization I really want to work with.
Yeah,
But it really gives me joy to know that, oh my goodness, I've preached this for so long, and to meet the very few people that actually do it,
yeah,
it makes a huge difference.
yeah,
Huge
yeah,
difference. The same
yeah.
thing I say, no employer should ever sit at your desk to hear they're being fired on the day they're being fired. Because it
That's
just
right.
didn't
Yeah,
happen. There was warning
correct.
signs, and at all those warning signs, we should have had a conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
Something is not
exactly.
aligning with us. This is
No,
not working. How can we support you? This is
yeah.
before they hear. Now and how many people just walk in and it's done?
Mm, I know. I think there's so many. I mean, I'm old, so there's so many things that are red flags for me now. And I guess I just want to pass on, like, to as many people in my life, including my nieces and nephews and my children, about, you don't have to put up with these things in workplaces.
Mm,
If you feel like you can't be you in a workplace, then look for the workplace where you can be you, because that means your values aren't aligned. And sometimes you might not know why you're not happy, but it's because in here your values aren't aligned with what the workplace is. And I mean, I've had the same thing happen to me as a senior, like as a CEO. I worked for an organization and they're not on any of my paperwork because I'm almost embarrassed because they were the worst workplace I've ever had. Um, and literally, this was only a few years ago, and
Mm,
the environment was just I can't even describe how toxic it was. I think on the day that I started, they had like 4 unfair dismissal claims going through Fair Work. They had a couple of sexual harassment claims coming through. And it's like, this is a community organisation where people should have good values.
mm,
Anyway, I didn't really, on my last day of probation, we ended it compatibly. I don't think it was really. My work contract, and the person that was my immediate manager, who was probably the cause of most of it because she was the most powerful person in the organization, said to me, "Oh, I don't think you're a very good fit culturally for this organization," because I was trying to make all of these things change. And I said, "Do you know what? That is literally the best compliment anyone has ever given me." Because that is just saying that I'm the opposite, and that's fantastic. It was horrible. It was soul destroying, and just the way that people were treated, and literally I had no power to do anything about that. And
mm,
yeah, it was quite harmful to me, to my mental health, but also to my kind of internal. And if I'd been much younger, it probably
yeah.
would have done a lot more damage. But I was able to just walk away and go, you know what? Nah, this is horrible. And for that to be occurring in this day and age, for that sort of workplace where people make a complaint about harassment, which is justified,
Mm.
investigated by an external agency, and they're the one that loses their job. It's like, how does that happen in the 2020s? I just don't even comprehend that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and my
Each to
influence
their
was
own.
zero.
Each
Yeah,
their own. And I say to this organization, you end up paying so much money in the work staff turnover, the insurances premium you're
yeah,
paying for the psychological risk. And
yeah,
my question is always, how do you then go home and sleep at night? How do you
yeah,
sleep at
yeah.
night? I've just never been able to understand it because just like you, I think if I'm in a position to make someone's life better, I will
Hmm.
always choose to make it better
Hmm. And we
rather
should
than
all be
make it
doing that. And
worse.
it's simple. It's a simple
Mm,
solution to world peace. I mean, really, don't do it from your ego. Don't make it about you. I mean, sometimes I have days where people make decisions or do things, and I think, but then I'm like, no, that's your ego talking. Just because they didn't do it how you thought was the best way of doing it doesn't necessarily mean it's not the right way. Um,
mm,
and I certainly I don't like hold grudges, or you can't take those sort of personality traits into the workforce, because if you've got a workforce that has an influential CEO, because that's the kind of workplace you have, where you've got access to them and you can talk to them and do whatever. If that person is difficult and is toxic, then the rest of the workforce will be. It doesn't matter what great work you put in place, what
mm,
structures you put in place. If it's coming
mm,
from the very top, then it's going to filter down, and that's it. And all decisions that are made, people will be scared to make decisions, and then it's just awful. It's awful. So people need to have that sense that they're responsible for themselves and for their work, and then that brings trust, and then you can trust them because you know that they're going to be responsible for what they need to do. And if they need to work from home, or they need to have half the day off, or they've got to take their dog to the vet, then so be it. I don't mind. Do whatever you need to do. Just kind of get your work done, and try and fit your world in around it at the same time is fine with us. So, because we do have, I mean, all women have caring responsibilities at my work. So,
yeah.
children and family, parents, all sorts of stuff, friends. And it's just, you don't want people to stop doing those things, because that forms part of them. And you want them to be the best person they can be, as opposed to, if people are not being able to do the things that they need to do in their lives because of their work, then that balance isn't right. It's terrible. So you
Mm.
can have the best of both worlds, but you do have to have a workplace that's quite flexible. That's flexible in the sense that if you do take a day off, you shouldn't feel bad, which
Yeah.
is also another thing. I guess people feel that pressure when they're sick or their children are sick to not be able to say, "Oh, my children are sick, so I can't come in." It's like, that's fine, don't come in.
Mm. Mm. Yeah,
So
yeah. I totally hear that. So we've spoken about what really has shaped you and really makes you really want to keep going. I want to
mm,
hear in this work and the years that you've done it, what is the one thing that a story that has stayed with you that would keep you up at night, that makes you shift the way you look at humanity and the way you view the world?
um, I guess there's so many of them. But I guess when you say that, the first thing that comes to mind is that we've had a situation where we've had a woman who, and this is a client story, not a staff story, but a client story,
Mm,
a woman who left an FDV relationship because she was heavily pregnant and was being assaulted. And she left the relationship living in her car, went into hospital, had the babies, was discharged to her car, and ended up giving her children to child protection because she had twins because she didn't feel like she could keep them safe. And her only two children. And you think for a mother to have to make that
mm,
decision and I think the babies were about 6 weeks old and she was living in a vehicle and she just felt like she couldn't keep them safe. She had no resources. She had no family. And she literally just came and said basically, she came into refuge with the children and said basically, I can't do it. But anyway, so child protection removed the children from her voluntarily, which was very traumatic for our staff, if you can imagine. We
mm,
placed her in refuge. Even though we're a refuge for women and children, she was able to stay without the children. And we worked on reunification with child protection. So to get her a safe and stable place, to learn some protective behaviours around herself, so therefore her babies, and just give her sort of the support that she needed to be able to get out of that situation and to. We have transitional housing, which means that they
mm,
can move from refuge into another home, but we still care for them. They're kind of close to us. She went into transitional housing, got the children back, and
mm,
um, and I just think that if we weren't there for that, to be able to do those things, I don't know where
mm.
she would have ended up. I mean,
Yeah.
I just can't imagine the desperation that someone must have that they have nobody. There's zero people that they can ask for help. And particularly when you've got two little babies. And I think of all the people in my life, and my family, and if I was in that situation, my mum would have taken them or my aunties, to not have anybody must be a very, very hard thing to then come to people you don't know and basically trust us. I mean, how do you make that leap as a person who's never had anybody and can't trust people? Um, to going, okay, yeah, let's do this thing and stay with us and we'll make sure that you get your children back. We'll do everything that we can. And I think that in itself is, for that person to be able to do that and put that trust in us is enormous. So, but anyway, she got the babies back and that made everyone happy. But to have the children removed was a very traumatic experience for staff.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
and I guess that's what we would classify probably as a critical incident because although it's not, you can imagine as a mum,
Yeah. Yeah.
people that have their children removed by child protection or give them up voluntarily aren't people that don't love their children.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
a massive preconception. They just sometimes don't have the skills or sometimes don't have the resources to care for them properly for whatever reason. But it does not mean they don't love them and they don't miss them and they don't ache for them every minute of the day that they're not together. So
Yeah.
as parents, we know that, and we knew that that's what she had done. She'd chosen that rather than her children being unsafe with
Harming.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
harming the children. So it
yeah,
is actually love. To me, I look at it as an act of love and an act of
oh,
sacrifice. I'm not gonna
yeah,
be selfish and sit here knowing I can't do it. I would
yeah.
rather they're safe. I think I see so much deep love.
Mm.
Catherine, thank you so much for the work that you do. It's actually unreal that an hour has just passed. I'd have loved to continue with this discussion, and we should come up for another session and just hear more into the work that you do. But I'm very grateful that you gave us your time. Before we go, I want to ask you, what does human edge mean to you in a
What
world
does it
full of
mean?
AI? Mm.
Oh, I don't know. That's a weird question to ask me after I've been talking to you for an hour. I think I don't know. I think I love humanity, and I love the fact that we're all different. And I think that we should be embracing that and using that difference for good. And that's not going to happen unless we kind of have a systemic change, I think.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
Thank you so much. Leadership isn't about performance, it's about
Mhm.
standard we walk past, the decision we justify, the culture we quietly create. Catherine, what you've shared today challenges the idea that kindness, trust is a soft skill. It sounds like it's actually one of the hardest discipline in leadership. Thank you for the work you're doing and for this conversation. Forever grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, Anastasia. Nice to meet you.